Okay, this is a partially disassembled Mid-Atlantic Products RC4 rack shelf. This is what I use for my foaling farm. I settled on this. I was looking initially for something very similar to this that would fit in a 19-inch rack, was 4U in height, but that came up and was something like a motherboard tray. It would give me support for the video cards in the back so that I could screw them down, properly. And a little ATX output here. Couldn't find anything like that, short of buying something like this and then putting a motherboard tray, like a Lee motherboard tray in here. And it just seemed like overkill because this comes with these bars here that you can adjust, slide up and down. And they're able to clamp down on my graphics cards and hold them steady. So it just seemed like an overkill, and I like the holes in the bottom for airflow, so I used it as it is. Okay, here's how I mount the motherboard to the shelf. It's really pretty simple. I've got some standoffs here. These are little stainless steel standoffs. I happen to have them in my business, so I use them. You can use anything. I use these little guys. They have a threaded end on them already, and I just insert the threaded end through the motherboard, and I put a nut on the top of the motherboard, and this motherboard has 9 holes, so when I'm done I'll just have 9 pegs sticking out the bottom. These standoffs have a hole in the bottom, so then I just use a 440 screw, come through the slots in the bottom of the shelf, and attach the motherboard to the shelf. It's really pretty straightforward. Okay, here's the motherboard after I've put the standoffs on the back of it. I'll lift it up and show you the back here. You can see a little heatsink on the back, some stiffeners. You can see my my standoffs. Pretty straightforward. If you can't find the standoffs that have the protruding screw head or screw, then just use plain standoffs. So come through the screw on the top. I just find this a little bit less fiddly to work with. So now I'm going to bolt it on the shelf. I am both clumsy and impatient. It's a bad combination, so I started scratching my desktop, so I got a piece of cardboard, put the shelves on them. Figured that out after about the first rack or two. So here's the deal. Got the motherboard. It's just going to mount on here. I mean, you can see where this is going. You mount this off to one side. That's actually the wrong side. Turn this around. It's going to mount in here about like this. And the boards, when they hang off, they won't touch because of the standoffs. And then there's room for one PSU, one power supply, the second power supply. The hard drives have started having to stand up because of the dual power supplies. And that's pretty much it. And the rest is just a bunch of wire crammed in the back from the power supply, since they're not modular, because I'm cheap, believe it or not. So this is basically how it's going to go. I'll not film that part because we have both better things to do with our lives than watch me film that. But I'll show it to you in a minute when it's ready. Okay, there it is. That's the Foxconn Destroyer. It's mounted to my shelf. Obviously, it's on there for good. It's stiff. You can see I just let the RAM in and processor. That's just how I roll. I'm in a hurry. I want to get done and go have a beer, and it's 7:30. Alright, these are the PC power and cooling supplies that I'm using. I just bought these at Newegg. These are, I call them their silencer. They're 750 watts a piece. They're rated for SLI, obviously. They're also 80 plus power supplies, so their efficiency is pretty good. These particular power supplies have a single 12-volt rail. Each supply will end up powering 2 of the GTX 295s. And one power supply will power the motherboard, and the other one will power the hard drive. So the load will be as even as I can make it. Okay, this is the secret sauce for the power supplies. You can buy this. I bought these at Frozen CPU, I believe, and had them put the shrouding on them. Definitely optional. couple extra dollars a piece. But when this plugs into the motherboard, one of the power supplies will be powering the motherboard. Then the other one is switched. So the little stub there goes to one supply and switches it, and the other one goes to the other and powers the motherboard. These are cheap. I don't remember exactly how much they paid for them. They're 12 or 14 bucks. Well worth the money. I wouldn't even, me personally, I wouldn't mess with it. That's the hard drive we're using. It's just a Newegg special. I just go in and buy pretty much the cheapest hard drives that they have, because the only thing that's going to be on the drive is the operating system. So if it fails, it's $33, $34 for an inexpensive hard drive. This is a little cheap Samsung. I think I actually bought this one in town instead of off of Newegg, but just look for the cheapest thing.